Hey everybody, welcome back. Mynor Ramos here, and we have been covering certain aspects of advanced insurance. Let's just call it principles, right? All right. And so I have Mike Domico here with me, and we've been covering four of the pillars that we use in advanced insurance principles. So here, this one today is actually very, very dear to my heart. It is what's commonly known in estate planning. I call it legacy planning because there's a variable that I think a lot of people miss. See, most people are carrying out a legacy right now. There's a story that they're building. They just don't know. And so they're not documenting it and they're not telling their story. Now, most of you who have been following me, you do know um, uh, our family suffered a great loss. My 25-year-old daughter, Kayla, and she was an insurance agent. She was in the industry and she was helping me to build this part of the business because she saw something that wasn't making a whole lot of sense, where people go to work and they create this wealth, whether it's a home, an asset, nice 401k, whatever the case may be, a life insurance policy, and then they didn't have the documentation that's required to prolong and really accelerate this, right? So a life insurance, for example, is a funding mechanism for a trust, a revocable trust, the will, the power of attorney for medical and for financial. And there's all these, other different things that we go and we help our clients. So in my role with asset legacy planning is to service the clients of other agents, because a lot of agents really don't know where to go, and they're afraid of talking to an estate planning attorney, which I'll be like, everything has changed with technology and with software. And that's where we are. That's where our strength comes in, is that we have the license to service that. Now, on the other hand, though, Mike, you've seen, I mean, all the stories you've told me about, generations. I mean, we're talking about maybe three or four or five different generations that your family, your father has seen in the industry. Talk a little bit more about how legacy planning is such an important role, and that's why it's the fourth pillar of advanced insurance principles.
Well, Mynor, thank you, first of all, for the opportunity and the privilege of working with you. I do want to acknowledge that this is just not a collaboration of convenience. We're very much of like minds. So if I can use the analogy of, I'm going to take a trip to legacy. As an insurance agent, I can provide the cash for you to take your trip. But if you don't have a plan on how to spend that money, you could waste your time sitting at home with a pile of money. Legacy and the principles that you bring to the insurance agent is the roadmap. There's at least four basic instruments that I always refer my clients to, and also a fifth one. But the four basic, first of all, is I tell them they need a will. And what's a will? It's simply you verbalizing in writing how you want your estate handled. It's very simple. Number two, a health advocate. In today's world, you can find a situation where someone ends up in a hospital and the doctors are saying, well, now what would you like me to do? And this is the worst time of your life. You got someone you love who's all of a sudden, brought down to a decision, and you have to make that. Well, I tell people it's much better if you make the decision so your family is relieved a little bit of that responsibility, because they know what you want, and then all they do is make sure it happens. Mm-hmm. So the health advocate is very important. Living will, which goes hand in hand with the whole idea of a health advocate. The living will actually has your specified wishes. I do want to be on a resuscitator. I don't want to be on a resuscitator, whatever the situation may cover. And then the fourth one, which is also extremely important, is power of attorney. This one gets a little touchy because I've had people argue, well, you know what? I really don't want to give my wife a complete power of attorney, or what's known as a durable power of attorney. And yeah, okay, fine, that's something you have to hash out, but rather you hash it out when you're still cognitive and still have all your wits, so that, again, your wishes are what prevail. The fifth one, and it's not for everybody, it's not for every situation, are trusts. Where the trust is obviously needed is if there's a child that has a special need, and they're called special need trusts. But other than that, you have to judge whether a trust is right for your situation or not. I always tell people the difference between a will and a trust is a will is just a very general document that says how you want your disposition of your estate. A trust gets extremely specific. I had a case one time. A good friend of mine had written a trust on a young couple, up and coming entrepreneurs, very, very aggressive, died in a car accident about age 32, 33 years old. And they left a son. And the trust was so specific that the insurance agent at the time, who I was familiar with, a close friend, calls me up one day in tears. I says, George, what's the matter? He says, well, I just got off the phone with Joe. I says, oh, you mean from that case you told me about? He says, yeah. He says, we had a little give and take where he wanted to buy a new car. He's getting ready to go to college. And he had his eye on this really beautiful little sports car, a little Triumph red one. So he really liked it. And he was very vehement about doing this. And I just explained to him that his father and mother wishes, which were specified in the trust, was that it had reasonable transportation to make sure that he could get to school, get to work, whatever. He just called me. And he told me he wanted me to come over and see his brand new Chevy 2. And he says, Mike, he says, I asked him, why did you buy a Chevy 2? He says, excuse me. He says, Dad told me to. Mm-hmm. That's the power of a trust. Mm-hmm. Is that for everybody? No, for some people it doesn't apply. But if you have specific wishes that you want to make sure your children and your heirs understand, a trust is what you do. So whether you look at 4 parts or 5, legacy planning is what it's all about. I'll provide the money, but if you don't have the roadmap, it's just money.
That's right. That's
okay.
Right. Yeah.
So
thank you.
You can actually get past the grave.
That's right. Yeah, and you know, one of our specialties is that we actually craft a message that the individual will leave for their family that will be guarded. You know, what a beautiful, just a memory to have that individual like document how they came up with this and the thoughts behind it in their own words and their own emotions, their own, you know, their own face on the video.
Well, every time I tell that story, I still get choked up because
I see.
That's power way beyond I'm capable of.
Yeah.
You know, I can provide money. That's it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, you know, this is a very important part, and this is why we won't leave this out of the mix, because we've seen many scenarios when we have to, you know, pay out a death benefit, or unfortunately, there's been times that we've had to help people understand how living benefits work, which is another part that most people don't get, is that, you know, if the living benefit in the policy is available and the individual who's the insured isn't able to communicate, that living benefit doesn't do any good until they go through the legal process. And the last part is just understanding the jurisdiction. Is a trust will allow the estate to basically, you know, clear out without a lot of intervention from the courts. A will is still contestable in the court of law. And so, you know, with probate
and one caution, and you and I have discussed this briefly. I've had clients ask me, well, Mike, you can write a will. Yeah, I can, as a matter of fact, but I won't, for one very important reason. It doesn't have ESQ at the end of my name. Okay. So for anybody that's looking at this and saying, well, yeah, I can write a will, I understand the law. Okay, fine. Write the will, hand it to your client, and then take it to an attorney.
Yes, right.
But if it doesn't have ESQ at the end of it, that will can get thrown out at any given time. And I don't care who says what. Okay. And I'm very vehement about this because I've watched it happen. Okay. So to everybody out there, whether you're a professional or whether you're a client or a potential client, you can get help writing a will, and legacy planning is certainly important, but have that attorney sign it. I don't care if it costs you a couple bucks. Believe me, it's the best money you invested.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. Listen, it's been another great conversation going over the four pillars. And, Mike, thank you so much for all your expertise and your knowledge, and of course, the impact that you've made in the industry. I know that there's a lot of people that are really picking up a lot on how to do things right. So, guys, until we meet again, there's going to be some links in the video regarding the webinar, regarding some of the concepts that we talk about and how to get in touch with us. So until next time, guys, see you soon. All right, bye.